Welcome to my channel, HFY Revelation Strike. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel original story, written and owned by me. Largest group of multi-world children in the entire school from all across the galaxy. Students attended his classes and learned not of just knowledge, but they learned of each other and different cultures. It was not until the addition of Julie, the first human child to attend the school, did instructor Selt run into issues with his students befriending and accepting a newcomer. Julie, it seemed, was an enigma to the other students. The planet she hailed from Earth was surrounded in mystery and legend, being called a death world or uninhabitable. Instructor Sabal felt that this stigma was why Julie ended up eating her lunch alone in some dark, secluded corner of the common area. Every day he had seen on many occasions the young Earthling try to reach out and befriend the other students, but they were all too wary of the Earth child to ever reciprocate the effort. It was then that he decided to show the entire class how like all of his students were, no matter what world they hailed from. Every world could be called a death world, and what planetary body did not have areas on it that were uninhabitable? When it was all put into perspective, Instructor Sabal was confident that the mystery and threat of the unknown that surrounded Julie would disappear and friendships would soon blossom. So as he sat looking over his class, he gave them the assignment: in 3 weeks from today, I will require a video presentation from each of you depicting your home world, paying special attention to its dangers, both animal and geological. He said students that share a home world may work together on this presentation, but be aware that this will be 40% of your final grade, so please put forth an effort worthy of the weight the grade will carry. And so Julie, who was the only Earthling in the entire school, much less the class, toiled on her assignment, stressing the dangers and perils of her home world, as did all the other students. On presentation day, she was to be the third student to give her report. She sat nervously waiting, but she also was very interested in the reports before her. What dangers lurked on these other worlds she was soon to find out. The first presentation was of a world called Barf, and the 3 students that were from the planet went in great detail about how deadly and dangerous the floor was. They provided a video of a smallish furry creature that walked on 4 legs and had a bushy tail. Watch what happens here, one of the presenters said excitedly as the video depicted the small animal being presented with a piece of cloth dangling it in front of the creature. In response, the creature made a hissing sound and slashed at the cloth with a paw, and the students all saw some claws appear seemingly out of nowhere as the beast attacked. See that the presenter yelled, pointing at the video screen. Those razor sharp talons were not there, but a second ago, if that had been your arm, this beast would have cut the skin to the bone. A smattering of applause and murmuring broke out in the classroom. The presenters, all smiles and standing straight with pride, returned to their seats. Only Julie seemed to not enjoy the presentation. In fact, she sat there with a look of confusion on her face. Noticing her furrowed brow, Instructor Sabal asked her, "Did you have a question?" Julie, still with a look of confusion, Julie replied, "But Instruct, wasn't that just a house cat?" A small smattering of laughter broke out from the students. Instructor Sabal held up his hand for silence, but there was also a ghost of a smile on his face. "No, Julie, that animal is a vicious beast. It would in no way be appropriate to have it in a household, not if you valued your life." At least, still looking confused, Julie just nodded and waited for the next presentation. As the second presentation began, the students giving it said, "The beast you saw before may have been deadly, but nothing will terrify you as much as what we call death from the skies." They then launched into great detail how the scourge of their home world could descend on them from the heavens at any given time, renaying flesh from bone and inciting terror into the populace when their shadow merely swept Across the ground it seemed all very dramatic, with music playing in the background, and then the video finally focusing in on the terror from above, a brightly colored flying creature that had a short curved beak, now claws are. Bad enough, said a presenter, but watch the strength of this creature's. More in the video. The feathered creature grabbed a hard-covered seed and began to bite down on it with a loud crack that echoed through the classroom. The cover broke in half, revealing the soft seed inside, which the creature began to eat. The class went wild. Did you see that? What if that had been a finger? Thank the Creator, we don't have those on our world. Julie stared dumbly at the screen. Finally, she waved her hand at the monitor and said rather loudly, but that looks just like a parakeet. Silence fell on the classroom. Murmurs of she is just jealous and how rude could be heard. Instructor Dr. Sabal was worried that his plan was backfiring. He had never known Julie to be anything less than pleasant, but her behavior today was borderline at best. Okay, Julie, he said a little sternly, please come up and give us your presentation. For some odd reason he could not fathom, Julie looked nervous and stayed in her seat. Instructor, I fear I may have misunderstood the assignment, she said. Finally, I was under the impression that we were to show the dangers of our planet, not so much the dangers of our pets. Instructor Sabal choked pets, he said loudly. That feathered merchant of death could never be a pet. Julie looked crushed, and under her breath she mumbled something. What did you just say? The instructor demanded immediately. A student next to Julie stood up. She said, my 4-year-old cousin has a stupid parakeet. Instructor, the instructor glared at Julie. You will now give your presentation, or I will contact your parental figures and you will attain a 0 for this assignment. Slowly and with great reluctance, Julie left her desk and walked to the front of the class. Every eye was on her, and all of them were not friendly. Julie knew that this was social suicide. No one talked to her now. They sure wouldn't after her presentation. If they thought a parakeet was dangerous, fine. If they wanted her presentation, they would get it. Feeling there was no way out of this, Julie began, my presentation is of the dangers we can face on my home world called Earth. On the video screen, a blue marble of a planet appeared slowly, rotating in the north of my home continent. We are faced with animals that fear no creature, she said slowly, as an image of a small, squat beast appeared on the monitors. The SE changed to a beautiful landscape covered in white, when suddenly the creature burst up from under the ground, sending white spraying in all directions. The entire class screamed in alarm, and Julie paused the video. The words Wolverine were frozen on the screen, superimposed over the snarling face of the vicious beast. What is that? One student asked, pointing a shaky hand at the monitor. It is a Wolverine, replied glumly. They are a nasty animal that know. The student interrupted, what is all that white stuff? Confused, Julie stared back at the screen. What the snow? The alien copied snow. What is snow getting? Really confused, Julie replied, snow is rain that gets frozen before it hits the ground. A gasp of alarm escaped from the student. Your rain freezes in the air, like outside, not in a laboratory. Julie just looked at him and shrugged her shoulders. Yeah, for about 25 to 40% of the year, depending on where you are. Silence greeted her words anyway. She continued, unpausing the presentation. You can see the Wolverine is so nasty it is willing to attack predators much larger than itself. Here she showed a small Wolverine snarling and advancing against a grizzly bear. What in the seven hells is that? A student screamed, pointing at the huge creature made of muscle and sinew on the screen. Pausing the presentation again, Julie looked at the screen, then back at the student. What the bear? Those things are all over my home world, the student stammered, shaking in his seat. All over? How are you even alive? Julie laughed. Oh, bears are bad, all right, but there are much, much worse things on Earth than bears. You must be lying, a voice said, and it took a second for Julie to notice it was her instructor who said it. He was sitting in his chair shaking with fear smiling. Julie just fast-forwarded her. Presentation a little bit to wear warm. Clear, calming water was all that could be. Seen 71% of my planet is covered in water, she said, and in that water are many creatures like fish, crabs, seahorses, squid, and the like, and as she talked, pleasant pictures of each animal flashed. On screen, we even have what we call seals, she said, looking at Do-It an alien. Classmate that looked so much like an anthropomorphic seal was frightening. Do-It smiled widely as he watched the seals play and leap in the waters. We also have sharks, Julie said. And out of nowhere, a gigantic great white shark appeared on screen, chasing down and biting into the seal in a rush of red, stained water. Fleshy chunks of bloody meat sinking into the depths were all that was left of the seal. Do-It sat with his mouth open, a silent scream on his lips. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Instructor Sabal screamed, but instructor Julie said, I haven't told you about vampire bats that rip open your flesh and drink your blood, or crocodiles, or lions, or snake scorpions. Spider, stop, just stop, Instructor Sabal gasped, his hand clutched over his heart. Do-It stared in abject terror at Julie. How did your people even survive, he asked, because Julie replied calmly, glaring out over the terror-stricken faces and wide eyes of her fellow students, because the most deadly creature from Earth are humans, and saying that she headed for her seat as she walked down the aisle. She could not help but notice that the other students shied away from her in fear when lunch rolled around. Julie almost cried. She knew that her presentation ensured the rest of her school days would be spent in self-inflicted isolation. As she nibbled at her sandwich, her appetite long gone, a shadow fell over her. Looking up, she saw the seal-like Do-It standing over her. Julia just looked up sadly. You are awesome, Do-It said earnestly. Did you ever see a shark before in real life? He asked, sitting down next to her, shocked but pleasantly so. Julie said, yes, my uncle and I caught one while fishing once. It wasn't as big as the one in the presentation, though, she admitted. You caught one, Do-It said, impressed. Imagine catching a beast like that. Another shadow fell across her, with another student asking, can you tell me about those vampire bat things? They sound scary. And another shadow, and another. Julie, all smiles, tried to answer all their questions, but there were way too many. When the lunch period ended, Julie was surrounded by admiring students as she walked back to class, looking out the window. Instructor Sabal smiled. It may not have gone entirely to plan, but it worked. He looked back to his work, trying to grade Julie's assignment. He tried watching more of her presentation while the students were at lunch, but gave up when seeing what a fish called a pyron did to a large vine herbivore. He gave a short laugh. If she survived that place, he said under his breath, she deserves an A. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Original story written and owned by me.